Hello and welcome to another episode of Marvins World podcast. A podcast where we speak to tantalizing and scrumptious individuals who will enable me and you to make what we love a full-time job. If you like this tantalizing podcast, please leave a review on iTunes and share it with your friends. If you don't like it, share it with the person you hate most. Today, in this episode, I speak to Vasudha Sharma. She is an immigrant from India to the United States who came in to pursue the American dream. She's been there for a very long time, and she has written an awe-inspiring book to every woman out there and every man out there who can look at helping women in the workplace. It's called a book called Why She Must Lead. And in this episode, we go through, it's a little different to what we normally produce, but hey, we got to look at things. I thought it'd be interesting to look at this. As you know, we live in a very strange times and an even stranger society. So I thought this would be the perfect episode to look at some of the issues that we have. And she discusses her book, Why She Must Lead, and like her journey to the States. And she discusses how the many challenges women face in going up the ladder. She discusses how men can be better allies to women in terms of providing a more equal place. And there's a lot of practical advice within this episode on what women can do to tackle the objections they face in terms of achieving what they want. Now, all I want to say is, let's meet Vasudha. Pleasure having you. How are you doing today, Vasudha?
I am doing great. Well, it's around 7:40 in US.
Oh, I'm
So
sorry.
no, it's great. But it's a beautiful day. So it's nice to be up.
Oh, and I see you've got like a nice, beautiful room. You've got all those trophies, and you've got a picture of someone. I don't know who that is. Is that you when you were younger? Or?
Yeah. So everybody who is very dear to me. There is a picture of my son on my bookshelf.
Ah.
And then, there is a picture of me with a great friend of mine. So, people who are very close to the heart.
And you've got some books there. Some of them look like, are they meditation books, some of them? Or
Yeah, so one book is called Gita. See, I am Hindu by faith, so I read Gita. That's like my Bible.
oh.
And then, I have cultural literacy. I am very deeply, passionate about diversity. I'm passionate about equity, inclusion, cultural literacy. So those are the topics which really I appreciate to read a lot on. So yeah, definitely those are the books you'll find on my bookshelf.
Yeah, and like I think when I looked at the book, like when it said why she must lead, you can see that there's quite a spiritual sense there.
Yeah, it's spiritual in a way that it's written in a very self-reflecting manner. It's not just a book which is lecturing you on what needs to be done. It's more of like throwing a light on the subject. And the other thing which I tried to do with the book was to share the stories. So the book is actually a non-fiction book, which I recently published and released. But the book has a lot of true stories of females who are considering leadership, or women who did not consider leadership. So both ways we are trying to analyze. But the most important thing is the data used in the book, because sometimes we don't know what is going on. So it's very important to look at it closely, about the leadership gap many women have experienced in
Ooh.
their careers.
Now, I'm going to ask you a question here. Have you seen Terminator 2?
Yeah.
This is a strange segue, but let me explain. So there's a scene where Sarah Connor goes to the Terminator and says, "What's your story?" And I'm going to follow that into you as well, in terms of what is your story of like finding, like building a passion to write this book and to share your knowledge in the world, and like your journey into the States?
Well, I think that's a great question. I was born and raised in New Delhi, India. New Delhi is known to many because it's a capital city. And at about 16 years now, years ago, I immigrated to United States, and I've been living here ever since. So I have seen two very different sides of world. Growing up in India as a little girl, and coming to US, and land of opportunity, and trying to live a dream and follow my passion here. So seeing those two, I would say, sides is something which gives you a very unique vision of things. You think more widely, more deeply. At the same time, what I felt during my journey was, being a woman, that in India, I felt like there was a lot of paradoxes I saw. When I was born, we had a female prime minister, and but my own grandmother was illiterate. So there were women who were highly accomplished, but there were women who were denied literacy. So I felt like, why there is so many paradoxes in the society, especially for women back there. When I moved to United States, I felt like, maybe somehow I have cracked the code, and I can live the dreams, or follow my passion and aspire. But I did feel that the challenges for women are very unique, and they need to be understood. They just cannot be brushed aside. And I know it could be a topic which could be a great, debating point for many people, because we see women everywhere. Uh, you know, this new century, there are women in all walks of life everywhere. But I felt women were missing from key leadership position, even in the profession which was heavily saturated with female. For example, I am a physical therapist by my profession, and healthcare is full of females. There are like so many women everywhere in healthcare, but we didn't have anybody in the leadership position. More like it was almost like maybe very few. So I just got curious that what is the reason women are being, shying away or not reaching there. And that curiosity led me to interview a lot of women, understand their barriers, understand, the intersectionality, and how it can affect leadership.
Okay, write these down. Um, so, did you say that you're a physical therapist, right?
I am a physical therapist. I did my doctors of physical therapy in United States in Utah.
Okay. Now, it one thing that came to mind when you mentioned about like women having trouble and like needing to progress, like obstacles in terms of women progressing,
Absolutely.
is I want to look at how What would you think of if you had Jordan Peterson in a room now? Because I remember a few years ago he caused a bit of an uproar with talking about a lot of different issues, and one of those was sort of issues women not getting better jobs. And what would you say to him if you saw him?
Can you repeat the last part of the sentence? I couldn't hear the last part.
So with Jordan Peterson,
Mm-hmm.
what would you say to him if you saw him in regards to discussing why women are not employed in high positions at work as much as they should do?
Um, I just feel, we have to understand it from the point of view of women. We have to understand it's not that simple of an answer, and that's why the book is also written in a lot of self-reflective way. Um, I feel one of the main reason is that women do not choose that for themselves. They do not choose to, a lot of times I've heard, oh, women are not as motivated sometimes to take on the role of leadership, and that is not true. Because I have done a lot of interviewing, a lot of, researching the data, and we have an example in front of us. Like, we are sitting in the 2020 century, and we have Fortune 500 companies. Out of them, only 38 are women CEOs. So out of 500, we have only 38. And out of those 38, only three are women of color. Now, women of color is anybody like me who is non-white. So I just feel, the numbers are speaking for themselves, and there is a lot of, although there has been a change of trends in women having coming to the entry level positions, but this is, I don't think it's a voluntary choice. It's a issue which needs to be deeply looked at and understood from a point of view of women, that why they are not associated with leadership role as much.
And is your book sort of like a practical guide for a woman to go out there and get it, and like recognizing some of the common obstacles you'll face and like how you can overcome them?
I think it is for everyone. My book is about creating allies. When I say by creating allies is that once you understand the cause, you can do something about it. Um, the problem is a lot of people don't call it a cause. A lot of people think that it is not an issue, because again, as I said, it can be misleading when you see a lot of women in the workforce, and you can say, oh, they are everywhere. So I think this book is for everybody to understand the subject and also to be an ally, because I feel like we should do whatever possible we can to not to have a leaky talent pipeline, because if we lose so much talent, it affects, I think it will affect every country, it affects every nation to lose their talent just because of this gap.
Mm. And a question: what? How has so has anything changed? Have you noticed over the years in terms of making it easier for women to progress and achieve jobs over the years, achieve
um
high positions? So.
I don't think there has been um anything easier. We can put a label on one thing, but I do feel there are more women entering the workforce, which is very true. Statistics say that we see it for ourselves. Um, it's this trend which I just shared with you, of you take any top leadership positions in the world. I gave you an example of Fortune 500 companies. Out of 500 companies, only 38 women CEOs are there. So there are, the higher leadership positions are still uh, not, as equally filled. There is, there is an equality issue and there is an equity issue. Those are, sometimes we hear them very similarly, but they are, two independent issues. And I feel one of the main reasons the progress has been uneven or even slow in those areas are because it was not registered as an issue. When you see the leadership gap, when I was writing a book, a lot of people had a lot of discussions over this topic with me. They didn't quite understand why this book needs to be written. They felt like, and we live in the modern era, and we live in the current times where there are no barriers. Unfortunately, the barriers which I have discussed in the book are not related to something which are physically present. They are more of like our bias. They are more of like an unconscious bias, and that can only be changed once you register the topic, once you understand the cause, once you understand the need. And that's why we need more. We need more light on this subject. We need more light on understanding the issue of leadership gap for women. We need to understand, there are various factors working here. So I personally feel that, I don't think it has been something which has been consciously slow of a progress. It's just there are a lot of barriers and biases involved because of just poor education on them.
Hmm. Now, one of the things I want to ask you is I want to find out a bit more about how. So you work as a physical therapist, right?
Yeah.
Okay, see you later. What's how has your experience in like physical therapy, being a physical therapist, helped you, helped inform your this like inform how did it, what was it about it that inspired you to write your book, and what examples have you seen of like where women have been, even though they're qualified within your industry or in your workplace, where they've been qualified but haven't got the job they deserve?
Oh, there are plenty of examples like that. I myself am a good example. I took leadership role like few years ago. I become the director of rehab, and I took leadership role. But raising a family, taking on that role, facing the challenges, um, it was huge. See, I say healthcare is saturated with women. I just mentioned that to you. When you go to any kind of healthcare setting, you'll see how many females are there. We don't have women in healthcare problem. We have women in healthcare leadership problem, because even if I researched the data here, the the key decision making positions, even with 80% of the women being in healthcare, we're not helped by them. You can say, for example, if you take a sample of 100 people and you see that out of them 80 are women working in a particular workplace, um, they should be represented, um, at least in that percentage, when they are hiring people for the key roles. They are hiring people for CEOs, for director roles. um, it was not the case. I just felt like, even sitting in the most powerful nation of the world, that's how we call it. I felt like, I just there is no advantage of being in any kind of place unless those barriers are looked at deeply. So that was one example. I gave you the example of healthcare. Then I'll move on to some examples which I saw while I was growing up. Now my mother had a full-time job, and when I was born, it was not very common, at least in Indian society, to have, women have full-time jobs and raise a family, and, be like, be such a major multitaskers in their life. It was not common. It was, my household was almost an exception. So I studied her life, and my mom actively denied a lot of promotions because she said she can't make it work raising a family and taking on that, because the gender roles which were given to her, and she had her own levels of expectations from her. It kept her away from taking on to, a higher professional role, or a role where she could, grow. So to balance it out, she compromised a lot of her career. Like, she continued working her job, but she didn't want to take on higher position. But, as I said, that was a while ago when I was growing up as a little girl. When I moved to United States, I found out a lot of women were not choosing leadership, not because of, just because they didn't want it. They were not choosing it because it just didn't feel right to them. And that was, again, a very you know, curious finding. Why it doesn't feel right? Uh, why you have to fight that inside yourself to make sure that you're going to be okay once you take on that role. There has been a study done where they try to say, there is a saying that men would apply for a job even if they only meet 60% of the qualification, and women will not apply for the job unless they meet the 100% of the qualification. So there is a behavior trend there. There is a trend where women feel they are constantly on the guard because they'll be being judged heavily in the roles they take on. So there are a lot of layers. There are a lot of issues, and I have seen it for myself. As I said, growing up, coming here, taking on that role, I've seen those examples myself, and I really feel that those examples needed to be highlighted. So that's why I wrote the book.
Okay. And who have been your female heroes that have inspired you to do this?
I think, when we talk about heroes or sheroes or, inspiration, we are trying to find an answer in, like, maybe naming a couple of names. I would tell you very honestly, I feel I get inspired by any woman who has a courage and ability to speak up for herself. I feel that is very huge, especially women need to learn that more often. We shouldn't always look for ways or, saviors or icons. Oh my God, who would, always show us the light. No, we should cultivate and find that courage to speak up, to stick up for ourselves, and any person I see, any women who demonstrates that attribute, even any person that shows that quality of, that courage to, speak their conviction, to, stick up for themselves, to fight for what they aspire for. Is just highly inspirational to me, and I have met so many women like that. I mean, I cannot even just say few names because throughout my career and my life, when I see that quality, it's very inspiring to me.
Okay. And who were sort of male heroes of yours that have stood against adversity?
Well, so I'm a mother of two boys, and I have my husband who has been the pillar of support to me. I don't know what I would have done. I honestly, writing this book, raising a family of two kids. My kids are young. One is 8-year-old, and other is 12. And raising a family, having a full-time job, trying to follow my passion of writing, being an author. I don't think I can do it unless, I had that support from my husband. Even while I was growing up, my father was a huge inspirational person to me because, my father demonstrated that how much, a man can do to, you know, have that shared responsibility at home where women can thrive. My mother, as I mentioned, did full-time job all her life, and she wouldn't be able to do it if my dad was not beside her. And she wouldn't be able to raise us so well. So I feel like my dad definitely has always been greatly inspirational to me.
Mm.
And then I also felt like after I came to United States, my husband was a great example. In fact, I have mentioned him in my book that how he helped me understand feminism. I didn't know much about feminism. I learned it through him.
Mm. And what is the greatest example? What are the main things that men can do to support feminism, and what are the main things that women can do to support feminism?
Oh, that's a great question. So I talk about male allyship, how the role of male advocates for helping bridge the leadership gap for women. One of the thing is, if we look at the world population, men and women are almost like equally, 50-50 almost. Maybe we have few more women in the world, but um, it's pretty fair amount of. So half of the world is out there, in form of men, you can definitely help a great deal. Second, I feel like men still hold key leadership positions, like, the example I gave, Fortune 500 companies, other companies, they have that advantage where they have those positions, they have those powers, they have those privileges. What is one way is, first of all, to understand, this topic needs to be understood. I don't want men to become enthusiastic without even learning the challenge which women are facing when they are trying to bridge the leadership gap. So how can they do that? One of the good way to understand the challenge is to, first of all, be an active listener. Try to understand, try to listen, try to observe, try to educate yourself on the topic. There are a lot of books which talk about male advocacy, even including my own book. I wrote a whole chapter on it. I put some great examples and ideas in there. So, it begins with listening. It begins with, acknowledging the topic. After you do that, I think a lot of times men have I feel like men do want to support and they do want to help with with this advocacy, with male advocacy. But the problem is that sometimes they feel they'll be typecasted, or sometimes they feel like they might feel some kind of um, um, a barrier within when they talk to other men about about male advocacy. They may not be as actively involved, and that's another challenge, to have that group with you, to have that your tribe with you of male advocates. So I would say, do not feel like you are alone. Male have a tough time advocating for women. Any men who have tried to do that, and that shouldn't keep them off. The one thing which we need from male advocacy is to be actively doing it. To not, you don't have to find time to be a male advocate. You can just integrate that in your daily life, in your daily actions. You can be a great example. You can also, make sure that you create safe space for women who are able to share their challenges. You can have topics, discussions on it. But, definitely, as I said, listening, observing, and being an active advocate requires a lot of thoughtfulness, requires a lot of, passion on the topic. So make sure that you definitely are doing it for the right reason. You understand the topic. You are able to read more about it, and educate yourself on it. I have spoken about something like a glass cliff. By glass cliff, I say, if you are very enthusiastic about being a male advocate, but you have not understood the responsibility and you have not understood the whole idea behind it, you might place women on a glass cliff. Like, you should understand what you are trying to do to promote women to leadership roles. You should help them be prepared for it as well. You shouldn't, like, glass cliff is like you didn't spend a lot of time in understanding and advocating or promoting for mentorship or sponsorship, but you just get her to the leadership role. She has a greater chance of failure then. So you have to make sure you have to work in your way in a very um, problem solving approach, as I said, not just advocating for women to get on the leadership role. You should also make sure that you are advocating for more mentorship, more sponsorship. There are not many examples out there, and that's the challenge I faced when I took the leadership position. I didn't have a mentor, and I didn't have an example of another female in that role, which I could have taken on and could have related to that. So I just feel they need to be good advocates by understanding, by listening, by being more thoughtful, and more education on how they can help women.
Okay. Well, so you've said a lot of things about support and like what men and women can do, but there is a flip side to what you've said there, and I hope you don't mind me asking that, is that there are, like, on the comedy circuit, there's a lot of male comedians who claim to be feminists, but they're the reverse of it. And they're basically just saying it just so they can, and then there's a lot of, occasionally, sometimes there'll be female comedians on a circuit who will misuse certain things to try and get people that they don't like into trouble. And there are people that misuse what you're talking about here. And how do you, what do you do there with people who are trying to misuse
Okay,
the
so
movement?
okay, so I think what you're asking me is if women are working in a heavily male-dominated industry, and
No.
oh, okay, sorry. Then please explain your question to me.
What I'm getting at is I'm talking about people who misuse it. People who claim to be on the side of women from the male side but aren't,
Oh, right.
and then try and like take advantage of the woman, and then also what's it called, women who misuse it to get people men that they don't like into trouble,
Well,
because that happens a lot in
unfortunately,
comedy.
I know, and unfortunately, that's the truth of it. Sometimes we do face those kind of challenges. I would say, as I, stated previously in this talk, is first of all that ability to speak up for yourself, the ability to, women definitely. I always try to encourage more, in any kind of discussions and talks I'm saying is that you should not look for your saviors. You should not look for somebody who is going to be, it's nice to have an advocate. It's really nice to have that kind of, support around you. But women should definitely find the courage to speak up for themselves. They should definitely actively be doing that. I more importantly, women should never underestimate the power of networking. They should never underestimate the power of getting together. There, the what you have said is very true in many times, and in in different ways. I've seen people are misusing. There is a misguided um, reasoning behind it, and again, I that part and that side, it can only be resolved when we are first of all trying to make sure that we are not going to tolerate any kind of injustice if it is done, and not only for ourselves but for somebody around us. If you know that you have that courage, you have that ability to speak up, that is going to go a long way. And that ability is the most important ability when you are talking about advocacy, when you're talking about social justice. That ability to speak up is huge. So My only thing is that when people are being not fair, when people are trying to be more on, with the wrong intention, and there is definitely, you feel like they said something and did something else, do not never take injustice as a solution. Never take coping as a solution. And again, as I said, the book talks a lot about that, and about the importance of speaking up, the importance of uh, trying to get together every chance you get, the importance of networking. So you have more support than you think. Sometimes we just have to look up and reach out.
Now, there's something I want to lead to there. What, yeah, what are some stories of people that have been like, who your book has helped change the life of? Who are people that have like messaged you and said, "Oh, thank you, man, you've really changed my life."
Oh God, it happened yesterday. And I would tell you, you would be intrigued. So I got a video review by a little girl in India, and I got a video review by a professor. She's a college professor, and she's a senior lady. So two very different, women in age, in their environment, in their roles. And I think, as I said, this book is for everyone, because I'm not talking about a problem which is just a women problem. Hillary Clinton said in a UN speech, women rights are human rights. So this issue of leadership gap and equality, inclusion, diversity is a human issue, and I think in a way it will touch everybody in a very positive way. It has touched many so far, and those examples of the people I don't even know, and when they send me their video reviews, those examples are, I would say, the best examples I can give you, because if they know me personally, I might have influenced them in a way more than the book. But if they don't know me, and they have just read the book, it speaks for itself that how wide of an audience we have, to who can definitely take something by reading from the book. And it's the message is very clear. The message is that it's women rights are human rights. It should affect every person, this topic, and it's about creating allies. So yeah, we have a lot of readers right now, because I launched last week on Amazon Kindle. I have global readers right now. People in different parts of the world have downloaded the book and have read it. So the people who don't know me and who love the book are my true, I would say, true admirers, because they definitely have taken something from the book, which they have given their reviews on.
Okay. And for someone who, because we do live in a society that's very mixed, we've got some good and we've got bad, but someone who is a bit, let's just say, the opposite of being a feminist as a male, how does your book help to inform them and change them?
I think one of the way it can help them is that to the understand the challenge. It's definitely a challenge to get acquainted with the barriers, with the bias. And again, I don't want to just highlight those. I want to have a very problem solving approach. So those things, like, for example, I mentioned unconscious bias. Now, unconscious bias is not like something, if I enter a room and somebody is not very well educated on the barriers and bias, you can pose to a woman of color. They might have some kind of that unconscious bias, and they might not, like, they might not be as open to the idea of hiring. Like, they, for example, if you look at the data or statistics, there was a very interesting study done where, the resume, they just sent some fake resume to university students, and they tried to help them highlight who is they'll consider for hiring and who they will not consider for hiring. So what they did was, what they found out was the more feminine names did not get into the list who were being considered of being hiring, because of whatever other indicators they had, their age, or their the way, their family setup, their marital status. It does affect, as much as we would like to reject the idea and say, oh, we live in a very equal world, we don't. It does affect, your how you are, how you are looked at. And if you do not understand how to fight that bias in your mind when you are in a position of hiring, or when you are in a position of welcoming diversity in workplace, when you're in a position of promoting, people, it's going to affect a lot of things. It's going to create a leaky talent pipeline. So people who feel like, oh, I am up for equality, but do not understand that bias, do not understand those barriers, they really are not doing as good of a service as they can, because they cannot eliminate it. And a lot of times it is unconscious. You are not doing it actively. Some people may be just saying, oh, I am up for equality, but if they are not educated enough how to promote diversity, how to be more inclusive, um, it definitely poses as a challenge in itself.
Now, with your book as a whole, like where do you see things going? Like where do you see like what with your book you've spreading the message, but what's next with all these corona times and what you're going to do when things get better?
Um, So there are two programs I've launched with the book. One is, I love the idea of storytelling, and so I developed it into the program. I think stories are very important to bring people together. When we share stories, that really is the true way to bring the change. And a lot of times, if people are not aware of what's happening or what's going on, it's very hard for them to bring that change. But storytelling is, not only an art, it's also a gift. A lot of people can definitely share a good story, but some people can use some help and, develop like an art. So the art and gift of storytelling program, I just launched with the book, and that program definitely would help people to um, be a better storyteller in whatever medium they choose. It has some vision exercises, some, guided approach to bring their stories in a more impactful manner. Then I have the second program I launched is Lead the Change. So Lead the Change program is for organizations or groups which are trying to understand diversity, equity, inclusion, and the tools they can use to promote diversity in their environment. So those two programs, again, the goal for the program Lead the Change, the DEI program, which I have tried to, you know, I have tried to do that workshop many times, and I've done the workshop in certain places, and I think every time I do the workshop, it's so well admired, because a lot, it's an eye opener. A lot of times you're talking about equity, you're talking about equality, but you really don't know the change. You don't know the difference. I would say there's this saying I, in fact, included in the book. Diversity is like being invited to the party, and inclusion is like being
Yeah.
asked to dance. So, sometimes you have to understand the relationship between these terms, which are being so heavily used nowadays. And, you need more like better tools in your toolbox to promote it. So those are the two programs which are next. And of course, I'm an author, I'll keep writing.
And if someone wants to, what are the sites and like where can they reach you and what are your social media handles?
My social media handles are Vasudha, that's my first name, VASUDHAUSA. That's for my Instagram. And then my Twitter is Vasudha Voice, VASUDHAVOICE. They can find me there. I tweet almost every day and I am very good in responding. And I love to share a lot of interesting, inspirational posts. And then I also have my website, whyshemuslead.com, where people can get my book in hardcover. So there is a button there, they can pre-order it. My book is coming out in hardcover within next 2 weeks, so it's gonna be in their hands pretty soon. And again, you can find me on Amazon Kindle. Just type my name or type the name of my book, Why She Must Lead. And, it's released all over the world. You can check the book out. You can leave a good review or, you can give me your feedback, what you liked or what you didn't like. And I look forward to it.
Okay. And I want to ask you, what what are you most thankful for in life? What would you say to your younger self? And what is a quote that you'd like to live your life by?
I am very thankful for my family. I would say, I think family is the greatest institution. It's very important. Whatever family you have, whatever your family may be different from others, but your people who are there for you, who you call family, you know, those are very precious. Those are very valuable people, and I really believe a lot in the power of the family. So I'm very thankful for them. I not only my family here in US, but where I was raised in India. I feel every experience counted in my life. It shaped me, and so that's one thing I feel like I don't know what I would have done without my family. And what I feel like I don't know what one message I can give, but as I always say one thing, never give up on your dreams. I one quote which I wrote in my book was, if future is like a rocket ship, then your dream must be your launch pad. Let your dreams launch you. You should have your aspiration and your dream launch anything you want to do. Of course, you need the fuel of your hard work, but never ever give up on your dreams, please. Those are very, very important to, and then make sure you you do take your dreams, seriously, so that you pursue them, you work hard for them, develop your skills around them. Also, most importantly, start with a why. Anytime you want to achieve anything in your life, start with a why. You should have a good why behind it, to have a clear vision, and you'll be there. That's all.
Oh, okay. Just believe it and you can do it.
Absolutely. Let your dreams launch you. Absolutely.
And what if you don't achieve your dreams?
Um, as I said, start with your why, understand the reason behind it, why you want, if I just sit here and say, oh, I want to be a president of the United States. Well, what is my why behind it? Of course, I can be anything I want in my dream, and I can think having a good why is a very great way to start. And then, once you have that reasoning, you can handle your failures and disappointments very well. If you don't have a clear vision of where you are going, if you don't have a clear vision of why you want to achieve a certain thing, you will have disappointments which are uh, way more than what you can take. And that's why having that vision and that clarity is very important. And never take failures, as something which is putting you away from what you want to do. I feel like failures are the tools for success. You need them to get your success in that beautiful shape which you want. And just take failures as a great learning opportunity. I really feel, do not get disappointed with your failures. Once you know what you're doing, once you know where you're going, failures are there to help you actually.
And yeah, that sounds like that's awesome. I just want to say thank you for coming on the podcast. I appreciate you being here, and I hope
Oh,
we've had some fun.
yes, yes. No, thank you so much for having me. And if I don't know if you have my links, I can send you via message
Yeah,
the
just do
meeting
that.
link I've shared with you. So I'll send it to you. Well, keep in touch. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, that's been Vasudha Sharma. I hope it's been intriguing. I hope that you've been informed about some of the issues that women face, and I hope maybe me and you we can change in terms of our perspective and look at how we can help women further themselves and contribute to a more equal society. And I'll see you at the next episode.